Thank you very much for your comments, and thanks for joining us. I thought it might be a little bit helpful for me to spend a few minutes just level setting what is this Hyperloop, where are we in the development of the technology, and what could be the next steps that we pursue as we actually do the hard work required to investigate about the opportunity to make this a reality here in India. So let's start with some of the things that I'd like to see us cover today. First of all, we just heard that India is committed to making this the place in which technologies are developed and one of the most innovative and transformative economies in the world, because the potential is all there. We are committed. And Shervin, you heard the words of the Minister of Amitabh, but the vision we have for this company is to actually build a partnership with some of the most important partners here and do some of the important development together as we build this platform going forward, because it really, there's a lot of work left to do, and there's so many smart people and committed people here available to help us get that work done. So I think we really do share that vision. We really do pursue a model that makes that happen, and I think together in partnership with some of the offers of your support, we can make some truly great things happen. First of all, what's Hyperloop? I'm going to just take a few minutes here and explain the basics, but Hyperloop is transportation in an enclosed environment. Think of this as two-way tubes, one going this way and one going in the opposite direction. Those tubes can be above the ground on pylons, and farms can be underneath of them, people can cross underneath, or they can be in tunnels, and much less expensive tunnels than the large-scale tunnels required for rail or for highway traffic. So we can go in a very smaller enclosed surface and actually dig and drill and make those tunnels much more quickly than you might think of a traditional major tunneling project. We have designed an electric propulsion motor which is affixed inside the tube. Power is applied for only a portion of the tube's distance, and that electric motor is controlled by a piece of software and control that allows us to only use power when the pod moves over top of the motor. And there's a lot of energy used, but we turn it on and off in microseconds. And we've designed that platform and tested that platform, and I'll show you an example of it actually having been tested as a component earlier in the year. Then we build a pod. What's a pod? It's a vehicle. It rides on magnetic levitation. It has magnets affixed to the bottom of it, which run away from the energy as we create similar polarity between the magnets in the pod and the coils inside of the tube. We can put cargo in that pod. We can put passengers in that pod. Both of them will require regulators to work with us to create the certification and safety tests required to make this a reality. We will not anticipate anything that would ever put human life in any peril, so we will need to work extensively with governments and regulators to make that happen. And then we remove the pressure from inside that tube. So in a low pressure environment equivalent to 160,000 feet above the Earth's surface, we have a equivalent to an airplane with some spaceship-like characteristics, floating on magnets with very little resistance, using an electric motor to propel it, and as a result we can go really fast, depending on route up to 1,100 kilometers an hour. We can use very little energy, and we can make some of the possible connections in a country like India go from hours, and in the case of freight, from weeks to days and minutes. And I think that's the transformation that's possible with Hyperloop. We can build a single infrastructure that can carry both people and cargo. So in the evening when passengers aren't moving, we could move cargo packages in this on-demand economy that we see the consumer moving towards. Every journey is point-to-point, and this is so important. We don't stop at every stop. And with the fantastic new metro that's here in Delhi, that has been one of the infrastructure successes that we should all say great things can happen quite quickly, a metro stops at every station. A Hyperloop doesn't stop at every station. It goes only point to point. So when you see the routes here, And the maps that we have developed with some of the teams that have been presenting their ideas, it's a point-to-point solution. And one of the advantages is city center to city center, point to point, allows us to really transform the time that's required to make this work. And by the way, we have to connect with other modes of transportation. We will go to the airport, we'll come to the city center, we'll come right up to an existing and major train station, or connect to a major artery of a metro, because this is just the high-speed backbone for existing transportation that exists today. And just like the internet required this high-speed backbone, the Internet of Things that's emerging requires a new mode of moving the physical things as quickly as we've learned to move the digital. Now, we're here today because in May last year, we said, well, we don't have all the best ideas as to where Hyperloop makes sense, so we asked the world in a global competition called the Hyperloop One Global Challenge. We said, where should we bring this idea first? And we had 2,600 teams registered. The largest number of those teams came from India, 130. We had, along with our transportation economists and engineering teams, we collaborated with them from May until January and selected the best 35 ideas in the world for where Hyperloop routes could evolve, and 5 of those are on display right now here at today's summit. And I wondered if you could join me in thanking the teams that have worked so tirelessly, presented their ideas today, and will be again with us after today's session, spent hours with us yesterday and with our experts. I'd like to thank all of the Hyperloop One Global Competition teams from India that spent their time, their energy, and their brain power in coming up with 5 of the best ideas in the world. Could you join me in giving them all a round of applause? They're all here, and I'd like to thank you. And I'd like to make the bet that with the government support, with what we really can do in terms of building an ecosystem that would allow this to be possible, perhaps 1 or 2 of those routes could become the first Hyperloop systems to go into production in the world. And I would be extremely proud to see that happen. You'll see routes that completely transform the times that it requires to move across major portions of this country. You'll see routes that connect smaller distances between cities, could open up job opportunities for people to not have to move in this decade-long urbanization, but perhaps live 300 miles away from where they could work. And imagine the difference that would make on the definition of a city in India. If I could live 300 kilometers away, still go to the office and back in 30 minutes or less, that transforms the definition of a city. That changes what we describe as a city, and these great cities of the world, to actually almost power regions. And when you think of the distance between Chennai and Bangalore as being 21 minutes, that means I could live in either city, work in either city, and have a point-to-point connection which takes me to a city center and major stops inside those cities. Up to 4 hours in plane, including getting to the airport, checking in through security, and returning that. We see this in a tunnel, into a city center, above grade when possible, in a tunnel through mountainous areas, and actually transformative in terms of eliminating the barriers that society puts in front of opportunities for all of us to pursue our dreams and the best jobs in the world, in the country and in the world. So we do redefine the definition of a city. And remember, it's that 30-minute rule which now allows us to make 30 minutes a whole regional center. And that is very much part of the transformation that Shervin first thought about when he founded this company. We can rewrite the rules of what it means to be included in opportunities when it's expensive to live in the great cities of the world today, which it is expensive to live. I could live somewhere else and still have the benefits of working and enjoying the benefits of those great cities without having to invest in the more expensive real estate. And it completely redefines the manufacturing models that we see. Because when we talk about a manufacturing base in India, We need to redefine to the next version of manufacturing, where we have 3D printing and distributed manufacturing connected very quickly with supply chains operating much more efficiently than they do today. And that's one of the challenges that I think we do need to overcome to build a Make in India strategy a reality. We need better logistics and better internal transportation systems, and we need the next generation of manufacturing architecture, which is not just the standard factory, but more of a distributed factory where everyone plays very quickly in this on-demand economy. And really, most importantly, in this dialogue today, we're here to say that we're building this thing. This is not an insignificant challenge. What I described, I'm trying to make simple, but the design of the propulsion and energy management systems, the design of the safety systems, of the control systems that will be required to effectively move a vehicle up to 700 miles an hour is not a menial engineering task. And therefore, we've assembled some of the brightest minds in the world. This is in our LA campus. Shervin, you gave us some of the data, but it's amazing how quickly this company has grown from the day I started in September of 2015. There were 37 employees. There's 237 today. There'll be nearly 500 by the end of this year. There'll be thousands working on this project. And I believe the next wave of growth will be in partnership with those countries that want to help us continue to develop the various aspects of this technology. We have an innovation campus in Los Angeles, some very smart people there, PhDs and masters of all sorts of engineering disciplines, working together, not in silos, but working in a DevOps model for hardware, which is why we're able to achieve so much so quickly. As the software industry transformed to DevOps, the hardware industry is transforming in the same way to design, test, and build. And through the school of Elon Musk, our team has decided that the only way you can decide if a rocket's going to fly, you have to launch a rocket. And even if you learn things from launching that rocket, you will learn them quicker and you'll learn more valuable lessons than by constantly modeling and looking for some theoretical perfection, which can't occur unless you actually do it. And this company is the Hyperloop that's building the system today. We have a factory of 100,000. This is a company that started 2 years ago, folks, right? Employee number 1 hired on November 2nd, 2014. We have a 108,000 square foot factory perfecting the manufacture of the components of Hyperloop. You want to make in India and do it here? We could take all the learnings that we have and transport the methodologies, the systems and components and programming, and learn more in doing that by building a production system here. That's exactly why we have a 108,000 square foot factory, because we're not going to be making these components out of steel and aluminum and shipping them elsewhere. They'll be made in the countries that decide to host the projects that we'll pursue. We have a test facility in North Las Vegas. We've purchased acres, 50 acres of land. We're developing a prototype. The first phase of that prototype will be operating shortly. Then we'll make it longer. Then we'll do banking. Then we'll do switching. We'll be testing and developing this technology for years, but our vision is to then do that on production routes along with a country that wants to host us and create the real engineering jobs and create the real opportunity that Amitabh talked about, and that the minister also talked about in today's opening. You might have seen this test earlier in the year. This was a component test of the propulsion system. You see those white coils that were on the bottom? That propelled very quickly the sled down a rail track. We won't have rails inside the Hyperloop. But what we are building right now is the full-scale production, where that component, where the pods, where the track, where the tube, where the pumps are all demonstrated as a full-scale system. And this is what's going on in the desert today. We've not been showing this before, but that's the system test that's underway. And before the summer, we will publicly demonstrate a full-scale Hyperloop in operations, and we will be inviting everyone from here to come and join us, because once we show you that the architecture will work, The next thing on our minds is now who should we work with in building that architecture. This is over a half a kilometer of tube. This is our CTO. This is our president of engineering and co-founder, Josh Geigel, showing some engineering firms around the world how big this is. You'll see the various scale up on pylons. There's the pumps that will reduce the pressure and bring it down to 100 pascals of pressure. So let's be really clear why we're here today, because the real Hyperloop company is now in India. We'd like to make this a collaboration and not something that we do in the United States. And our objectives are to make this technology happen and do it in collaboration with many, many of the smartest people and business partners and government partners in the world. So the real Hyperloop company has just launched in India today. Not only that, but we have some very exciting projects underway. I'm going to try to go through them very quickly. Our first project we did was a study along with the government in Finland. We're on our way to Finland. After we wrap up later on this evening, some of us are going to Finland because the Finnish government is extremely interested in the transformative impact that we can have on jobs and the availability of jobs and offsetting the high cost of living in Helsinki with the opportunities to live less expensively elsewhere. We're doing a study supported by the government of Netherlands. We're doing a study in the port of Los Angeles. Anyone been to Los Angeles? Worst traffic in the United States. 39% of the sea containers come through that port, and there's two highways, the 710 and the 405, the worst traffic highways in the United States, primarily because they are filled with sea containers. Why don't we build a Hyperloop from the port and scoot them 71 miles inland and bypass the city and put them on a train or put them on a truck where they'll go to the rest of the United States. We'll release the results of that preliminary study sometime in the next few weeks. And some of the most advanced work has been going on in Dubai, where I would say the notable part has been working with a real customer that operates the ports, DP World, who are also operating ports in India, as well as RTA, the Road and Transport Authority, which is the regulator in Dubai, who regulate the airports, who regulate the metro, who built the new canal. They are the regulator, and our work there has been collaborative in building out a roadmap as to how Hyperloop could become a reality across the Emirates, but starting in Dubai. Those are some of the projects. There was a slide here with more, but the ones I want to focus on today are the collaborative opportunities to do this in India, and that's why we're all here. So, history was made in 1903. This is important for two reasons. First of all, the world didn't gather necessarily and understand the impact of Kitty Hawk when the Wright brothers first took flight. And we saw the last new mode of transportation was developed by these inventors and future thinkers in 1903. This is 2017. It's about time that another new mode of transportation was developed to help us keep up with the growth of the planet, with an on-demand economy, with the stresses we've put in terms of urban life, the definition of new digital cities, and that's exactly what we're doing at Hyperloop. So, history will be made in the deserts of Nevada in the next few months. We will invite all of you to come and join us. But in the meantime, I think history is being made here today in India as we start a very important part of our collaboration. And my big dream, after having spent a lot of time seeing India thrive and drive the IT industry, would be to see India thrive and drive the transportation revolution that's going on right now. And that is our offer, that's our objective. And if we do nothing less than that, I'll be very disappointed.